Hi everyone, Janie here, and today I'm going to be making a mixed media home decor piece, and I hope that you enjoy watching and maybe get some ideas of your own. So let's get started. I'm going to be using the Kokorosa 3-piece layered keyhole cutting dies, and this set is so versatile, and it comes with 3 different size keyholes that you can use separately or together. And when layering them, you can layer them from the largest to the smallest, creating the illusion of depth like you can see here in this picture from Kokorosa. Or you can layer them in the opposite direction for a completely different look, which is what I'm going to be doing. And I'm also going to be using the Kokorosa vintage key cutting die that I thought goes perfectly with the keyhole die set, but also has many other possibilities. And I'm using this oval wooden plaque that I got from Michael's, and I will be using this aluminum iced tea can, and then I'm going to cut it open so that it can lay flat. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm painting that wood plaque with some acrylic paint that I mixed to be the color that I wanted. And I did this by mixing some gray and blue together to kind of get a gray color with blue undertones. And this is just the base coat for the Crackle technique that I'm going to be using today. So once that's dry, I'm going to start the DIY Crackle paint technique by first using a paintbrush to apply Elmer's white glue. And I could put it all over the entire plaque, but I have decided to just put it on that raised center area. I like to try to get an even coverage, but depending on the look you're going for, you can put the glue on randomly, or you can put it on thicker or thinner. And before that dries, I'm adding some vanilla acrylic paint over the top of the glue and randomly around the edges. I'm definitely going for that aged, distressed look, but it just depends on what you want. So depending on how much glue you put on will depend on the size of the crackles. And that's something that you can experiment with. They can be fine or deep and completely random, but this is how mine turned out. This first picture was taken about 15 minutes later, and each of these pictures were taken about 15 to 20 minutes apart. Mine dried rather quickly and did not have any drastic crackles in it, but like I said, that varies and it's pretty random. But I'm happy and I got just the look I was going for. Okay, next I'm using the aluminum can to cut out the 3 keyholes, and I usually go back and forth a couple of times, just to make sure that it cuts through. However, if you're trying this with something more intricate, you may have to put it through a few more times, but these cut beautifully. Oh, and something very important that I want to point out is that if you're working with aluminum cans, please be very careful because they can be sharp and I don't want you to cut yourself. And with that said, here are the keyholes I cut out. And I also cut a couple of keys from that same aluminum can. If you're into mixed media, aluminum cans are a fun medium to work with. Next, I'm going to be heat embossing those metal pieces, and I needed a nice disposable craft mat, so I used parchment paper. And I'll be using a few embossing powders from a company that no longer exists. And I'll also be using Wow embossing powder in Egyptian turquoise. And I know I showed the gilded one as well, but I ended up not using that. I will also be using the Ranger Emboss It Dabber, but if you don't have that, you can always use an embossing ink pad. So the Emboss It Dabber is really nice, and I can just dab it on all over the keyhole and then sprinkle the embossing powder on that. So while you're watching the embossing process, I'm going to play some music for your listening pleasure because I believe this process is self-explanatory. As you may have noticed, I was mixing colors, but the main colors that I used are from a company that no longer exists, so I can't give you links to those. And the Wow embossing powder that I was sprinkling on, I was unable to find a direct link to because I've had it for some time now. But Wow makes so many beautiful embossing powders, and I have put a link below in the description box where you can find them. And now that all the heat embossing is done and looks absolutely beautiful, next I'm bringing back that wood plaque that I did the Crackle painting on, and it's time to start adding the keyhole pieces to that. And to do that, I used a combination of Beacon 3-in-1 glue so that I'd have some wiggle room, and some spray adhesive for complete coverage. And I layered them starting with the largest piece on the bottom, and then the medium, and then the small. And as you can see, if you missed it before, I used 3 different metallic colors on the keyhole pieces, starting with the lightest one first and the darkest one on the bottom. And now it's time to start decorating, and I'm going to be using Recollections flowers from Michaels, and a butterfly from Prima Marketing that I've had for a very long time, and of course the keys. And even though I'm using my Beacon 3-in-1 glue to glue everything to the plaque, a hot glue gun would have worked wonderfully. But as most of you know, I don't have access to a lot of things right now because what wasn't destroyed in the windstorm is now packed up in storage. But as you can see, my Beacon 3-in-1 glue worked perfectly. I know sometimes I sound like a Beacon 3-in-1 advertisement, but it's only because I love it so much. And seriously, I'm not sponsored by them or associated with them in any way. It just so happened that once I discovered that glue, I fell in love with it and use it for almost everything. Not only does it work great with mixed media things like aluminum and wood, but it also works for all of my paper crafting and card making. I really love how this turned out. But when I was done, I realized that it needed something in the center of the keyhole. So I took the piece that was cut out from there and decided to heat emboss it with gold embossing powder. And after I did that, I didn't like the way it looked. So I decided to go back and emboss it with black embossing powder. And when I did that, magic happened. Some of the gold was peeking through the black, and it looked absolutely gorgeous and perfect. Here are some pictures to give you a closer look at the finished project, and I would love to know what you think below in the comments, especially about that last piece that I added. Thank you all so much for stopping by and letting me share this with you, and I hope this gave you some ideas of your own if you're into mixed media and home decor. And of course, there will be links below in the description box to the Kokorosa dies that I used, as well as a discount code to Kokorosa. And I will also have a link to where you can find the Wow embossing powders. I appreciate you all so much. Have a wonderful day, and happy crafting, everyone. Bye-bye.